What's going on, you good looking, beautiful Dragon Ball Super loving people? This is Tom from Team NWP and wanted to give you a slightly updated version of my OG Broly list. So, anyone who knows me and knows how I play OG Broly knows that I don't really play it as super conventionally as others do. As you're seeing here, we do not have any of the actual Broly support, where we're mostly looking at the Universe 2 engine, or a small Universe 2 with, mostly just green dot deck. But this is my favorite version of the deck. I think it can be the most explosive version of the deck, and if this is all you really wanted to come here for, thanks. I really appreciate the like and the subscribe. I'm sure you did that. But all good. I'll have a link to this deck profile down in the description, but if you want to stick around, we'll go through some of the card choices, explain some of the interactions, as well as give you a bit of a demo of a really, really strong turn 3 or turn 4 combo. So starting with the leader on the Unawakened side, as I'm sure most of you know, so I'll go through this leader quite quickly. Its permanent is this card cannot attack battle cards. Not really a huge drawback because we really want to be putting pressure on unisons and on leader cards, and we have plenty of ways to deal with battle cards, so that's all good. Its auto is when this card attacks, both players choose a card in their hand, place it in their drop area, and then Awakened condition is 4 or less life and you're a draw 2 leader. Awakened side, permanent is exactly the same. We're swinging for 15k, except this time we are a draw 1. Both players choose 1 card and 1 card in their battle area and discard them. So our way around that is good old Demonic Restraints. So this card came out quite recently, or not really quite recently, a couple of months ago, but nonetheless in the modern era of Dragon Ball Super, considering this is a set 1 leader. But this card effectively gives us the ability to not discard off of our leader skill. So we want to be seeing this turn 1 as much as possible. If we're not seeing this turn 1, then we're kind of screwed. This deck does not function without this. So when our leader card's swinging, this permanent prevents us from discarding, and then the auto on this allows us to replay this card when it's removed from our battle area by a leader skill or by a battle card skill, and we reactivate it from drop and can add up to 1 life to our hand. Its activate main is for 3 green. We just play a mono green Broly with an energy cost of 6 or less from our hand. As you're seeing, we don't actually play any targets for that. I probably should, because there might be some times where it might be nice to come up, but given that the deck relies on having to see this card or its searcher, which is SS3 Broly, by turn 1, the less clunky the deck, the better. So going across the board, we'll cover off on some of the obvious choices. So for Paragus, which is just absolutely busted for the deck if we can keep this card out, we're using the activate main on Demonic Restraints to draw a card and then just replaying Demonic Restraints for free. And this can help us self-awaken as well, which is fantastic. We're running 4 Paragus as our super combo. I think this is probably the best super combo for the deck. The only other one that I think is probably well suited is the Great Saiyaman Son Gohan one, where you bottom deck a card, draw 2 cards. Main reason being is that we do burst a lot in the deck, so putting a card back is not going to be detrimental to us, but also if we get cards in our hand that we actually need in deck, it gives us the way to put them back. So I'd consider running maybe a 2-2 split or just 4 of the other. I think either is just as good. I just prefer Paragus because we're drawing 2 first. We are running the 4 searches, so when this card is discarded off of our first initial leader swing, then we're activating the Demonic Restraints from the deck. 4 Dormant Potential, because green needs a way to survive and this kind of helps it survive. 1 Gohan. This one, we only need to see it late game. It's great for barrier removal, great for getting a 25k double strike beat stick on board because it does have deflect, and being able to play it for 2 energy, because when you're at 3 or less life, you reduce its cost by 3, is fantastic. Great card, but I don't necessarily need more than 1 in the deck. I think having just 1 is fine. For our counters, we are running 2 coolers. Cooler reduces its cost in hand by 1 for each green extra card in your battle area and your drop area, so that'll become a 1 cost real quick. We just need Demonic on board and then 2 extra cards in the drop. Plenty of ways to do that. And this one, when this, it counterplays a 4 cost battle card or less, and then plays itself, and then when this card is played, if your opponent has 8 or more cards in hand, they discard 1. So you're getting a 15k beat stick, counterplaying a card, and making your opponent discard 1 card. So a great card overall. And then we are playing 3 Freezer. Just 3, predominantly because we have the 2 coolers. So in tandem between the 2 of them, I find I get enough counterplay in. Now, to cover off a couple of the additions to this deck from set 14, we are running 3 Son Goku Spirit Bomb Unleashed. So this card is fantastic. I wish it was a little bit better. Maybe if it had Deflect, then I would be so much happier, because this card is just super susceptible to counterplays, unfortunately. But it's activate main for limit 1, meaning you can only use this skill once per turn on all copies of this card. For 1 green, if you have 3 or more energy and a green unison card in play, you play this card from your hand, and if you do, choose up to one of your opponent's unison cards and remove a marker from it. So it is great if they don't have a counter, because we can just neg their unison and we're happy. But if they do have a counterplay, unfortunately, it kind of sucks, because we're paying 1 green for nothing effectively. But if it does hit the board, its other activate main is great. So once per turn, we Spirit Boost X, meaning we choose the number of unison markers we remove, off a green unison, and this card gets 5k power for the turn for each marker removed from the unison card with this skill. If we removed 2 or more markers, this card gains double strike. So ideally, we are removing 2 markers, going to 25k double strike, and you know, if our unison gets real beefy, even bigger. The 1 card we're running in tandem with that is the good old set 7 Special Beam Cannon Unleashed Piccolo. So if we have a Son Goku in play with 28k or more power, and this card's not already in play, we can play this card from our hand for free. So it's a free 20k beat stick, which is fantastic. Again, one thing that green struggles with is being energy efficient. This is something that allows it to be energy efficient. And then its activate main is we can place the Son Goku with 20k or more power in the drop area and choose one of 2 skills. Choose up to one of your opponent's battle cards with a cost of 2 or less, ignoring barrier, KO it, and if you KO'd a card, your opponent chooses 2 cards in their hand and places them in the drop area. This is probably the better option of the 2. The other one is just simply choose up to one of your opponent's cards and KO it. So this one, if we needed to get rid of a blocker to go in for a big swing, or to just swing in with this for game, then it's a good little spot removal for free, where we don't have to, you know, wait for our opponent to play something to counterplay with Freezer, for example. So it's a good way to be proactive. I am only running it at 1 simply because it relies on this coming into field, and this being a little bit susceptible to counterplays isn't 100% reliable. And the other addition from set 14 is our secret rare. So Majin Buu Kibito Kai Absorbed is busted. I love it. Outside of, I guess outside of Cell really, but now after the errata Cell's kind of dead in the water, I would say this is probably the best generic green secret rare in the game. So its activate main / battle is for 2 green, you play this card from your hand and your opponent can't attack with battle cards for the turn. So playing this defensively is fantastic. And then even more so, it's auto Spirit Boost 2. When this card is played from your hand, choose one of your opponent's unison cards and gain control of it. So if we want to turn all of our opponent's defensive options off, because there are so many counters and negates that rely on having a unison card in play, then we can use this aggressively during our turn, Spirit Boost the 2 markers away, and then steal our opponent's unison, and then so long as we don't need the green unison out, then we're usually in a pretty darn good spot, and then it's a 40k double striker, and who doesn't like a 40k double striker? Now, running on to what is probably my favorite component of the deck, and that is the Unison and then the Universe 2 engine. So the Unison is kind of counterintuitive, but stay with me, stay with me. So it is a rejuvenate leader, so we place one card from under this card in the drop area and remove 4 markers, we gain a life from top of deck. Then its activate main is for 1 green. If we have a mono green leader and our opponent has 7 or more cards in hand, you play this card from your hand with 1 marker on it. Can't play copies of this card for the turn, blah blah blah. It's good because it kind of gives us a reasonable replacement for Demigra. So instead of relying on that Demigra unison that we can play turn 1, bump it up, and have all of our counters alive, this can give us that, but not quite as reliably because of that 7 or more cards in hand statement that we need our opponent to have. Now, its +1 is where it gets busted, but also somewhat counterintuitive. So its +1 is choose 1 card in your hand, place it under this card, you and your opponent both draw 1 card, then choose 1 green battle card with an original energy cost of 1 in your hand and play it. At the end of the turn, your opponent can choose 1 card in their hand and place it at the bottom of their deck. So the counterintuitive part, if you haven't guessed, is we give our opponent a card in hand destruction or hand control. That's not very good, but the trade-off of being able to free play a 1-cost green battle card is absolutely worth it. So with the amount of card removal that we have in the deck, between the leader card, between the cooler counterplay and the Piccolo and the Fusamasu, we have enough ways to kind of circumvent the fact that we give our opponent a free card. So it doesn't become that big of a deal, but the trade-off of being able to free play a green card for free, and if we see the amount of targets we have 4 Paragus, we have 3 Kikunsa, and we have 4 Ribrianne, it makes it worth it. So I'll quickly go into the Universe 2 package. So our starter, the one we want to see early game turn 1 as much as possible, is Ribrianne. On play, it searches top 5 for a Universe 2 or a Heroine card and adds it to hand. And then its activate main is once per turn, burst 2 for 1 energy. If your leader card is green or a Heroine card and you have 3 or more green energy, play up to 1 green Universe 2 card with an energy cost of 3 or less from your deck with a character name different from any battle card you have in play, then shuffle your deck. So the idea is this can play any of our 3 targets directly from deck. Now the main one we want this for is Kikunsa and Rabunra. So Rabunra is our free blocker. If we have a Universe 2 card in play, we can play this card from hand without paying its cost. But also just being able to play this from deck if we need to be a bit more defensive gives us the option to do that. And again, another way green is being energy efficient free blockers, always a win. Always a win. Now the main target, which I'll go through at the end of this, a really good turn 3 combo. Turn 3 if we're going second, because Kikunsa does rely on our opponent having 3 or more energy and 8 or more cards in hand for its activate main to go off. But on play, she is a draw 1 and then activate main burst 2. If your opponent has 8 or more cards in hand and 3 or more energy, this card gains 16k and double strike until the end of your next main phase. Oh, sorry, until the start of your next main phase, my bad. So with your opponent having to somewhat play around this, I've found that my opponent, if they're a little unsure about it, will combo heavier just to get out of that, which is good for us. But if they're not, and in most cases, when we get to that stage of the game, most decks will have upwards of like 12 to 13 cards in hand. So this is probably going to go off. It does have unique, so to play another one, we do need to find ways to get rid of it, but I'll go through a combo where that does get very easy and very lucrative. Our other last target is Rosie. So Rosie only gets its skill when it's played from hand, which is your opponent chooses 2 cards in their hand, discards them, this card gains triple attack for the turn. So it is a busted card. It does have deflect as well, so if we do get, counterplayed in window 1 here, we can, play the Rosie out if we do need to get a swing in and we just need to push for game. So, but ideally we want to be playing this from hand. So on the top 5 search, you'd be looking for, maybe 1 Kikunsa, depending on how late in the game we're going, maybe 2 if we know what we have in our deck. but primarily we're looking for our Rabunra and we're looking for our Rosies on top 5. Rounding up the last couple of cards, we've got 2 Fuse Zamasu, which is just a way to keep us extending and give us something that our opponent really struggles to deal with. 2 Shocking Death Ball for a Sparking Negate. I personally think this is still a better option than Homicidal Clones. More so because in tandem with Dormant Potential, I feel like Homicidal Clones is a little redundant. We're countering the attack, but then we're playing a token, giving a blocker. Unless we're doing that before we Dormant, which is a bad idea, then the blockers, it's not really any relevant. And this one, where it's giving us the ability to KO a card when we do this. And then the last one is just to round up the last couple of attacks, is 1 SS4 Bardock. So the premise of the deck and the way I play it is to try and be as energy efficient as possible and do a lot with very, very little. So what I'll do, I will swap over to my camera over here, and we'll go through what could be a really, really good turn 3 or potentially a turn 4, depending on if we're going first or second. So just for argument's sake, we're going to say we have 2 Kakunsa in hand, and this is the ideal board setup we have. So we have our field card, we have our Unison, we have 1 Ribrianne, and we have 1 Paragus. So chances are we're going to be able to get this out by turn 2, and obviously having Awakened. So first thing we're going to do is, with a leader, we're going to tap 1 energy, we're going to burst 2 cards, 1, 2, and we are going to play a Kakunsa from deck. That Kakunsa is going to draw us a card. So we've now netted 1 card in hand off that. So working on the idea that our opponent has 8 or more in hand and 3 or more energy, we're going to use our Activate main, we're going to burst another 2, and she becomes 20k double strike for the turn. So we are then going to swing at lead, start applying some pressure. So they negate, they don't negate, they out combo, not really too fast. Now what we're going to do is we're going to use Paragus' skill, targeting Kakunsa, place it in the drop area, and we're going to draw a card. We've now netted another card. We are then going to use the Unison skill. So we place 1 card from in our hand underneath it, we add a marker, both players draw a card, and then we can free play another Kakunsa. We draw another card. And then Kakunsa, use the Activate main, burst another 2. We go 20k double strike again. So that's 2 20k double strike swings. We've drawn 4 cards, and that's a lot of pressure that in that little early game, and we've only used 1 energy. Now after that attack's done, if we've still got this in play, we swing with leader, we draw a card, our opponent discards 1, and we target our Kakunsa to put in the drop area. And then, for 1 more energy, we can just quite easily play a 3rd Kakunsa. Draw another card. Use the skill, burst another 2. 3 20k double strike swings, all for the cost of 2 energy. We've drawn 3 cards. All of the Kakunsa, the 4th one off here, 5th one off here, 6th one off here. And then we've still got 1 energy open. So if we wanted to extend even further, say we've gone through that, because we've got a Universe 2 card in play, we can play our Rabunra for free with our last energy, send them all to the drop, and then we've got 20k discard a card. Obviously, if we're wanting to push, that's where we would push, but it can be such a solid turn 3, and there's been countless games where I'm able to get this off. So long as we can get this out turn 1, and we can see what we need turns 2 and 3. So ideally, when you're getting your starting hand, you're mulliganing for 1, 2, 3, and 4. Ideally, you would want SS3 over this, but primarily your Unison, your 2 1-drop starters, and it puts you in such a good position. So that is it for me. I hope you enjoyed. I hope this gives you some excitement to try the deck in a weird and wonderful way outside of the actual Broly support. If you like the video, I would really appreciate a like and subscribe. It will help the channel grow. And if you'd like to see more content or have any feedback, by all means, drop a comment, shoot us a message, scream profusely. I'd love to hear it all. Thanks again, and peace out.